Good evening.
Hi, Joe. Nice to meet you and to have you on Meet the Author.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Welcome. Tell me about what you're working on. I understand you're a researcher in social justice.
Correct. Currently, I'm working on my first book that's going to examine my life and leading up to the current of how I believe I've developed some leadership skills. In the meantime, I'm working on a blog that's universaladvocate.wordpress.com, and it centralizes around the theme of social and economic justice.
Okay. And what specific topics are you covering under social and economic justice?
Unsung heroes. A lot of people are out in the communities, locally, nationally, internationally, doing good deeds, and because they're not celebrities or have some high social status, then the media coverage of them and their circumstances is relatively low. So I try to seek out just common folk and highlight their good deeds, touch on some issues with political corruption and things of that extent. I know I get frustrated watching the TV or just observing the media where there's interviews going on and some of those hard questions that you and I may be thinking about listening to a politician or whatnot, and those questions don't get asked. So I like to go behind and add some commentary, maybe ask some more critical questions than the typical moderator would ask.
Okay, good. And so what kind of, give me an example, what kind of questions you would ask on a particular topic?
Well, I know that relatively recently, there was a cemetery worker at the Arlington National Cemetery, and her name isn't fresh in my head right now, but she was fired after she blew the whistle about the unmarked graves or the mismarked graves that were out at the Arlington National Cemetery. She was fired for blowing the whistle around that, and while there were hundreds of soldiers' graves that were inappropriately marked, she lost her job. And I would think that, in fact, she's an Iraq veteran, and having come back after her tour of duty, she was working at the cemetery, and I just thought it was a huge travesty that we would honor our veteran who would it was proven that the soldiers' graves were mismarked, and there was a investigation done by a top-level official in the military and determined that because there was no deliberate misconduct by any of the other staff or the higher-ups at the cemetery, that there wouldn't be any criminal charges or reprimands. But it still surprises me that, okay, you terminated the woman who blew the whistle on the situation, got the situation resolved. She lost her job, and those who were in the higher up position wouldn't even get anything less as a reprimand. So, I have some questions around.
So the problem was with her blowing
the whistle. Exactly.
Not that the graves were mismarked.
Exactly. So while there's a lot of questions around that, just the nature of the circumstance, I just focus on just the general theme of patriotism. Is this really how we're going to treat our, honorable veterans who come back from doing a good deed and come home and continue to do good deeds, and to lose their job, for doing the right thing? That hinges on probably what's a big problem with society right now, and would discourage people from wanting to do the right thing in the future.
Right. Just like we tell, like the kids have the saying, don't snitch.
Right.
And we're telling them, don't do that. You have to tell. But then, on the other hand, that's a double standard, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Wow. And then with kids these days, there's so much going on in their lives, and they really need to talk to someone, tell someone about it, and that doesn't help.
And they definitely do need good examples. I know I ended that particular piece by kind of mocking the Army general who led the investigation, who say that, okay, since there was no deliberate finding of any wrongdoing, then there won't result in any criminal charges or strict reprimand. So, my thing was that, okay, well, you're military personnel. I would hope that at least you would be able to cover your tracks when you're committing such a grave blunder, no pun intended. But, you know, now as human beings and in today's society, what do we need to do is figure out a way to look foolish and incompetent in order to cover our behinds. Mm-hmm. As long as we appear to be incompetent and stupid, then we may get a slap on the wrist for some misconduct.
Right. Well, I think they should have been reprimanded in some way, though, even though it was unintentional. Mm-hmm. But then if you're going to reprimand one, then you got to do across the board.
Exactly.
You know, for the whole situation. Otherwise, you do strike that fear that people shouldn't tell.
Exactly.
Or blow the whistle.
And I'm an optimist in that situation. I would hope that eventually, you know, the woman would be offered her job back. I know, as we've seen in a recent case involving the woman who had made a statement with the USDA, you know, Obama even offered her job back. But as someone who did the right thing in this situation, I think after the, you know, cooler heads that prevailed, that they would have offered that woman her job back, or something to that extent.
Exactly. So maybe people like you and the rest of us out there that are concerned about it can put pressure on.
Yeah, at least raise the awareness, right? I don't have a huge platform right now, but you know, the least I could do is, you know, pay attention to what's going on.
Well, then later in the show, maybe you can write out your blog information where people can get more information about this topic.
Absolutely.
And maybe hook up with you to find out some of these interesting things that you're working on. And one other interesting thing that you're working on is the anti-intellectualism.
Absolutely. In the black community, you know, there is a lot of effort right now to raise the, you know, the dropout rates, the low literacy rates, and there's programs set up all across the country to that effect. A big piece that's really missing in our questioning and examining the education status in the black community is, you know, the culture, the young hip hop culture, and how that relates to academic success. And currently, as it has been for the past generation, there's been a negative attitude towards high academic success in the African American community, and it's unfortunately transcended from youth into adulthood. And I have cause to believe that that's probably more of the problem that's contributing to the failure